Hey guys, so something new that I've been wanting to do on my channel is monthly reading recaps, where basically at the end of the month I go through every single book that I read in the month and talk about how I felt about it. So that is what I'm doing today for the month of January. Now, I am filming this on the 22nd, so January is not over yet. But so far in the 22 days of January, I have read 9 books. I think it's nine. And I'm currently in the process of listening to an audiobook and reading another physical book. So I'm making really good progress. I was definitely like speeding through books the first week, and then I kind of slowed down a little bit once school started. But let's go ahead and get into the video. Okay, the first book that I read is Never Lie by Frida McFadden. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I have been loving Frida McFadden over these past couple of months. I just recently discovered her, but her thrillers are so easy to fly through, and this one was no exception. The reason why I loved this one so much is because I thought I had the whole book figured out. I was like, I'm so smart. I know exactly who did what, and then she throws in this twist that's just out of left field. And it was crazy, it was thrilling, as rightfully so, but I loved this and I recommend this to everyone. So this is basically about this couple who was buying a house that was owned by a psychologist, and this psychologist has been missing for years. And so they go into this home, but then they get snowed in, so they're stuck there. And the wife finds these recorded tapes from all of the psychologist sessions, and she starts listening to them, and she discovers all these secrets, and she gets really paranoid being in the house, and just all this stuff starts to unfold, and it's insane. And it's multi-POV, which just makes it even better. Okay, then I read 2 romances kind of back to back. So I read the 4th volume of Heartstopper, which, why did no one tell me this book is literally so sad? Like, I read the first 3 and I was like, these are so wholesome and cute and I love them, especially the 3rd one. The 3rd one is my favorite so far. And I was like, oh, this 4th one's gonna be just like that. So sad, literally devastating. Still gave it a 5 out of 5 stars because it was a real page turner. It was so sad, but I also just loved how mental illness was portrayed in this book. I thought that it was handled very well, which is great. And I love to see books like that kind of portray that healthy attitude. Then I read The Stage Kiss. I was not a huge fan of this book. First off, I think I'm just like not a fan of adult romance. There are some adult romances that I love and just adore, but it's always the one that are like closed door or have like very minimal smut. So this one, I wouldn't say it was closed door, but I also wouldn't say it was like icebreaker level. It was just, that wasn't the reason why I didn't like it. I just thought that their relationship was super unbelievable. It's supposed to be a Pride and Prejudice retelling, and it definitely was, but I just think that their relationship was not like Elizabeth and Darcy, where like the chemistry kind of built up over the time. They had no chemistry. They went from hating each other to loving each other in like a chapter, and just the way that the male character was portrayed, I just did not like him. I thought he was a jerk the entire book. I did not think he redeemed himself. So I gave this a 2.5 stars, and the reason I gave it a 2.5 is because I did really like the kind of theatrical plot line, like the fact that it took place on like a touring production of a show. I really liked that because I obviously love theater, so I loved those elements, and I loved like the drama, but I thought that the romance was awful. Okay. Next, I read Betting on You by Lynn Painter, which was a breath of fresh air. I was so scared, since I read 2 romance books and I was reading a 3rd one back to back, that I would hate it, because normally if I read too much of a genre, whatever I read next, I just kind of automatically am like, eh. But no, this was so good. I think I just needed a YA romance, because I loved Heartstopper and I loved Betting on You, and that middle one was adult and I just wasn't a fan. But Betting on You, literally so good. Like, I could talk about it for hours, but this is a fake dating book, and just the vibes are immaculate. They're immaculate. Basically, these 2 people. They're both divorced kids, and they have a meet cute at an airport, and then they're both kind of annoyed with each other, and then they end up sitting next to each other on the plane, and then they keep running into each other progressively throughout the years until eventually they have to fake date due to extenuating circumstances. And it's literally such a good book. It's I love the banter and the dialogue. That's like my favorite part of the book. And I also feel like Lynn Pager kind of like upped her game. Like, this one was YA, but it didn't feel YA, if that makes sense. Whereas like some books definitely feel YA, and that doesn't make them objectively bad. This one was still YA, but it felt more grown up, and that just like upped it for me. So I gave this a 5 out of 5 as well. Okay. Next, I read How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin, and this was the first book that I ever read on NetGalley, which, if you don't know what NetGalley is, it's basically this website where you can go and request arcs of books, and then if you get approved for the request, you can read it. So this was the first book that I got approved for, which I was so excited about, and I really liked this as well. This one reminded me a lot of Knives Out and a lot of the inheritance games as well. So basically the plot of this one is this girl's, I believe it's her great aunt. Her great aunt passes away, but she made some changes to her will last minute. So she has to go, and basically the changes that are made is her and this other guy in her family have to compete, and whoever can solve the murder of her great aunt gets her inheritance. So there's sort of this competition for the inheritance, which is why it gives me Knives Out vibes because of the inheritance element, but also the inheritance games. It's not really a competition there, but there is kind of like a game. So it's a really cool book. It's a really interesting premise. I gave this a 4 out of 5, mainly because I didn't really like who ended up being the murderer. I thought it was kind of random. So it wasn't a perfect 5, but I still really liked it, and I definitely think you guys should go check it out in March when it drops. Continuing on the path of 5-star reads, I feel like I read so many 5-star reads this month, but next up we have The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I have no idea how to pronounce her name. Someone tell me in the comments. This was on my want to read list on Goodreads, and my friend Izzy is obsessed with this series. So when she saw this was on my want to read list, she was like, this is what I'm buying you for Christmas, and I'm going to annotate it, and then you're also going to annotate it. So both of our annotations are in here, which is like so cool and special. I have always wanted someone to annotate a book for me. This, such a great book. I was so scared going in. This is a magical realism book, and it's really good. I love the way that it's written, and it's just very eerie, kind of spooky vibes. Like, I would love to read this book in like the fall time because it has such spooky vibes, and you just get so attached to the characters. It's also very much like the found family trope, which I also love, and it's just eerie and mysterious and interesting and so freaking cool. So I definitely recommend this. I believe there are 3 more books. I think it's a 4-book series, but I've only read the first one. But I recommend you check this series out. It's really great. Okay, next is my book club pick, which is Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemor. I first read this, I think about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and I just love this book. It's a really cool premise. I've talked about it in a video before, I think, but basically this is a historical / general fiction book about Una Lockhart, and her birthday is on New Year's Day, so it's on January 1st, and every single day of her birthday each year, she jumps to a different year of her life. So it starts on her 18th birthday. She's about to turn 19. And the clock strikes midnight, and she wakes up and she's 51. She's in 2015. And she's like, what is happening? What is going on? And so she basically has to navigate her life through these jumps, and each year she leaves herself a letter saying, hey, this is what you should expect. And she learns so much about her life and the choices that she's made. It's such a good book, and I think it just teaches you to be grateful for your life and grateful for the choices that you make. It's a really cool book. I would definitely recommend. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars because there are like 2 year jumps in here that are just kind of boring in my opinion. Like, I feel like not a lot happens, and I was just kind of like, so it wasn't a perfect 5, but it's probably closer to like a 4.5, but still a great book. Okay, next up, we have Ryan's book club pick, which is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I don't know how to pronounce this author's name either. I'm really bad at pronouncing names. This is a historical fiction book as well. I forget what year it takes place in. Maybe it'll say. I don't think it says. Well, that's fine. This is also Reese's Book Club. Usually I love the Reese's Book Club books because they're just so good. This one, also great. It's basically about these two different mothers who come from very different upbringings, and they end up in the same town, and they butt heads, secrets are revealed, drama happens, a fire gets started, aka the title. So it's wild, it's crazy, there's so much that's being revealed on every single page. There are so many characters that you just want to slap across the face, and so many characters that you just want to give a hug, which is the best book. I gave this a 5 stars. This one was a pleasant surprise. I think everyone should go read this. It is a beautiful book. You will scream in frustration, you will cry, you will laugh. So great. So then I listened to the audiobook of The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Now, as you know, I loved the first 2 books in the series. The third book was a little iffy for me. I wasn't a huge fan. And I kind of felt the same way about this book. I gave this one probably like a 2.75, maybe a 3. It took forever to get into this book. The first like 20 chapters were grueling. Like, it took me so long to just like be interested and invested. I even had to put the audiobook down and come back to it because I was just so not wanting to listen to it. I was definitely more invested in Grayson's storyline. I thought his storyline was a lot more interesting than Jameson's, personally. I also just hated the characters in this book. Like, in the first 2 books, I feel like they're so different than how they were now. Like, Jameson was so greedy and selfish in this book. Like, it just, the fact that he was keeping secrets from Avery, like, I didn't like that. That's not how he is. That's not who he is. And same with Grayson. Like, I feel like Grayson was like such a cheat and such a manipulator in this book, and that's not how he is. And I just was not a fan of that. I really didn't like that about them. But I did really like Gigi, who's a new character that was introduced in this book. She was hilarious. Like, any scene that she was in, I just loved. So there were parts of it that I did like, but I was so frustrated with how the characters were portrayed because it didn't feel like it was part of the Inheritance Game series because the characters were just so different. I don't know if it's because like they're older now or just I was just not a fan. Yeah. Okay, so that is everything that I read in January. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up if you did and subscribe. I post book content and also vlogs, so if you're interested in any of those things, please check my channel out and subscribe. Also, check out my social medias down below. I have a book Instagram where I post my monthly wrap-ups and more like in-depth reviews of each book that I read. And I also just like post what I'm currently reading and things like that. So if you're interested in that, check that out. And then I also have a personal Instagram and a TikTok that I'm posting on fairly frequently where I post about like music and books. So if you like music as well, check out my TikTok. And I think that's it. So I will see you guys in my next video. I upload every single Sunday at 6 p.m. So make sure you tune in. And I will see you guys then. Bye!